right, everyone. Welcome back to the Upset Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Latasha Hewitt, and we have our crew and
Hey.
some guests with us today. What's up, everyone?
Hello, hello.
Yes, yes. You may recognize some of our faces, but we want to take the time to introduce our guest. We have none other than Pastor Lisa Smith Reed, the pastor of First Church in Washington, D.C.,
That's right.
who also holds the wonderful title of being the first female pastor in all of our regional conferences. So we are privileged to have her in our midst today. And we also have Miss Kaylin Griffin, who you're senior, right? Kaylin, you're senior at Pine Forge?
Oh,
Senior
Wow.
at Pine Forge Academy and a female leader in her own right there on the campus and in other ways. And so we're happy to have you join us as well.
Yep.
And as we've said before in previous podcasts, March is Women's History Month. And we wanted to take this opportunity through the podcast to celebrate this month as much as possible and throughout the year. We're not just going to do it in March. We decided that as a team, right, guys?
Yeah.
So we do miss Tally today. We wish he could join us, but he'll be back with us next time. But it's cool though because it kind of evens it out. You see all the women there at the top, and the guys are.
That's where you belong. That's where you belong.
Yes,
All right.
that was an intentional placement. Sorry. No, but honestly, so we just really want to have a discussion about women and leadership. We were kind of last time talking about respecting women in general and acknowledging their contributions, but sometimes it takes a different turn when we're looking at women in a leadership role. So I kind of want to pose to her, I guess, this question: when and even maybe the guys can weigh in too. When did you first recognize yourself as a leader? When did it just come to your mind like, wow, I'm a leader, like this is what I'm meant to do or be? Who wants to tackle that one? Pastor Reed?
I figured you were going to come to me first. Well, I thought about that question, and it's real hard to answer a question like that because I don't even know at this point if I even think of myself as a leader. I do what I think I need to do in order to accomplish the goals that I think God has set out for me. But I've never really thought of myself and sat down and said, you're a strong leader or you're going to be a leader. So I don't know. It's just really hard to even answer a question like that. I know that I've been doing stuff since, a teenager, involved in church activities and leading out in different things. So I do things that causes me to lead out, but to really think of myself as a leader, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't put myself in that category.
I understand that, but we're going to unpack that a little bit more.
No, I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna jump. All I don't listen. No, Pastor Lisa, I'm not going for that. You call it whatever. I knew about you, or I heard about you while I was still coming out of college. And by the way, I baked, so it has nothing to do with the age type thing. I stayed a little bit longer because I like the people who I hung out with. So I stayed in school longer. You know what? I understand what you're saying, but you were an influencer. You're the one that opened the door for Black women in ministry to say, not Black women to say, I can do ministry. You were one of those first. And I understand what you mean and saying that as a leader, but I knew your name before I even knew who you were. So I'm just letting our audience know that I knew you. I knew your name before I knew who you were.
But I do think she brings out an interesting point that most leaders, strong and effective ones, don't necessarily come forth as I'm leading.
Sure.
They're just responding to a call or something that God has impressed for them to do. And others really have to pinpoint and say, you're a leader.
You're a leader.
Give you a role or an assignment where you say, wow, even though I don't see myself as a leader, I am leading and
I think that's why I use the word influencer. I think that we never used those words in the 90s. That's like a word we're using right now, but totally an influencer back then, not only for women, but also for men.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Oh,
true.
I have a line. So leadership is not always internalized, but it is always recognized.
That's a long hashtag, but that okay, we'll go with it.
No, but that kind of summarized what was just said. She didn't really recognize herself as a leader, but Patrick, you did,
Yeah.
so she didn't internalize it as being a leader, but
You know what?
other people shared.
Wow. Just to think about it. And then I followed her years later in
Mm.
that spot. I never even thought about it. So it's more of, and when I got there, they were still mentioning, and this is DuPont Park, they were still mentioning some of the things that she started there that years later we took over. So influencer is definitely it for Pastor Reed. No doubt about it.
That's awesome. Now, Kaylin, since that question is kind of difficult, I'm kind of rephrase it with you. What was the first leadership role you had? Whether or not you realized I'm being a leader right now, well, what was the first like responsibility where you were like in charge of something that you can remember?
I can't remember the first thing that I was in charge of. I just by being an only child and following my parents around a lot in all of their leadership positions, I spent a lot of time. I don't know, everybody grows up kind of wanting to be like their parents in some way, shape, or form. And because leadership is all that my parents were doing, it was kind of like my dad said to me, instead of trying to follow what your mom and I do, you have to do something of your own. And so, like, one of the things that he always said to me was, you're a leader and not a follower. And so I can't say that I remember what my first thing was, but like, it's kind of just been there.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You were around leaders, so it's almost like it's what you're supposed to do. It's what you saw. It was like this is what the Griffins do. We get in situations, we find ways to make them better. So I can understand that too. I know even for me, I was a background person. I never liked to be up front. I used to always say, how can people go up front and speak? Like, why do they, how are they so comfortable doing that? And everything that I ever did up front was because someone forced me to. And I'm gonna say someone forced me to. Someone asked me, and I didn't want to disappoint them. And so after a while, I realized, wow, I'm actually doing things that I said I would never do, just like Pastor Reed was saying, because I felt like God was asking me to be obedient to certain assignments.
Okay, here we go. I know we have guests. Latasha, when did you first recognize? Hey, I might as well flip it. Because really and truly hearing Pastor Reed and hearing Kaylin, I'm saying to myself, yeah, Latasha, when did you first recognize that you were? Because I look at you as an influencer. I look at you as a leader. So tell me, let's, and unless you want to put me in the box where you are and put yourself down, so there's not all women on the top.
You trying to demote my spot up here? No, I think I can relate to both of what Pastor Reed said and what Kaylin said. I think I never listen, I didn't want to be up front. I didn't want to lead anything. I would participate, but I didn't want to, be the one, bringing people along. And at the same time, my father was the first elder. My mom was a clerk. So they were always up front. So in my mind, that's what my parents do. Like, that's not my life. But as I got older, I remember, I think I was in high school and the church voted me as the AY leader. I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't want to do this. But because I came from a small church and I recognized there weren't many people, I knew we needed an AY. And so I took the role because I saw that there was a need. I had no desire. Let's be clear. I had no desire, but I saw a need and I didn't want to let the church down. So I did it. And so much of my leadership has come from people asking me to do certain roles that I saw. If someone doesn't take this, something may not happen. Or maybe if they see something in me enough to ask, then maybe I should challenge myself enough to try to do it.
I think what I'm seeing in all three cases, Tasha, Kaylin, Pastor Reed, I think that what I'm hearing, and I'm not surprised to hear it, is that you've always been talented to do things,
Right.
but it wasn't your goal to be a leader without anything to lead with. So I'm thinking, I hear sort of the same song here. It's that, hey, I never really wanted to be a leader. I never, but the consistency with all three of your situations is that people saw in you leadership.
Yep.
Hey,
And I think that's how God works with us. A lot of times there are people who want to lead that have no business leading because
wow.
they just want to lead. I think we had a leader that just walked away from Pennsylvania Avenue. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
Walked
Don't say
There
away.
are
his name.
people
Don't
who
say his
want
name.
to be leaders but have nothing to lead with. And I
Right.
believe God recognizes people who have talent, something to lead with, who become leaders. And I think there's a humbleness too about it, recognizing that, no, that's not my goal to be on top. That's not my goal to be the boss. That's not my goal. My goal is to, you fill in the blank, help people, lead people, motivate people, provide spiritual foundation, whatever that is. And so that I'm seeing a consistency there, with the approach, because there certainly are women who are leading in leadership roles because they want to lead.
Yeah.
And I know some women who have wanted to be on top and be the boss, but failed miserably because they were preoccupied with the leadership role and not the ingredients of leadership. Does that make sense?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it. I mean, maybe I didn't word it properly, but I think there are a lot of people who welcome leadership in women, see it. They see it when they don't see it. I think that's what you're all saying too. Me be in charge. It takes someone to know what you're made of to suggest that you lead. You must have something to lead with.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that definitely puts a perspective on it that I don't think I've really thought about. But I mean, I grew in my journey. I'm sure the other ladies can relate. I grew in my journey of doubting whether or not I should lead something. And I think it had less to do with me being a female than me just not really seeing myself that way. And I don't know if the other ladies can relate to that, but even once we accepted these roles and we are leading, whether we want to call it leading or not, sometimes there are some challenges. You have people who come to you and say certain things or insinuate different things that make you say, listen, I didn't ask for this, or I didn't want to do this. I'm just being obedient. How have you ladies responded to some of the challenges specific to your gender in leadership? Sometimes you're going to have challenges in leadership, period. But have you felt that you had like Pastor Reed? I'm not sure how long ago it was that you became. We're not going. If you don't want to say what year it was, but I'm
one of those people that don't have a problem with dates.
Okay, all right. What year was it when you became a pastor?
I started off in Southern California Conference.
That's right.
And that was a year 1988 when I started as a youth director. In Southern California Conference. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, when I was thinking of challenges and I saw that question, I began to ask the Lord, well, how do you answer that question? And I'm going to be honest with you. Usually I would say the challenges were with men in the conference saying, you're taking somebody else's job. That you're leaving, a man should be in that position, or as a female, you shouldn't be in that position. And so that, may have been some challenges, but if I want to be truly honest, I look at the Moses versus the Pauls. And I'm the Moses. When God called him, he was like, Moses came up with every excuse in the book why he shouldn't be. I'm going to tell you, I am the most shy person you'll ever meet.
See?
It is. Some of you may not know, and maybe once I tell you, you'll see it, because of my shyness, people may assume that I'm antisocial, or they may assume that I am stuck up, that kind of thing. And, you'll see me off to myself in a little corner or at a place, but that's because I'm very shy and I'm a very introverted person. And because of that, it's been a battle being a pastor for me. And the battle is every single day.
Yeah.
For these last 30 something years, it has been a battle, and it's still a battle. I'd rather someone up front. People say they love to preach. I preach, but it's not my favorite part. I'd rather be one-on-one. So the challenges is really within myself, forcing myself to take preaching appointments, forcing myself to do what I'm called to do in ministry, forcing myself to go to church socials, and forcing myself to hang around with my members. It's a difficult challenge for me. So that's my main challenge. And I don't know if it's just a female challenge or what, but that's been my struggle. And every day I have to ask the Lord, keep me, if I'm supposed to be here, keep me. Because if it was up to me, I'd have been gone somewhere where I could do my work in a cubby hole and do what I have to do without being in front of people. And so I guess that's the main challenge, even though you do have the challenges with the male, not thinking you should be there. And but the main challenge is, I guess, it's within myself. The Moses syndrome, should I call it?
That's interesting.
I think the Lord saw in your temperament that very trait, which makes you perfect for leadership, because the emphasis is not on you as a leader, but that which you are leading people for. And that's to me, that's a perfect ingredient.
Me too. So,
I'm sorry. I'm busting over here. So y'all go ahead.
the shyness part?
No. I think because I understood years later where Pastor Lisa was coming into a man's world, the associateship. She was more of an assistant more than an associate going into DuPont Park. It was rough for me as a male being there. I'm really trying to figure out, was that your first move coming from Southern California straight to DuPont? Was the first move, right?
Yeah, I had been in Southern for about 8 years, and I was pastoring my own church when I came to DuPont.
When you came to DuPont.
Right. Before I came to DuPont, I was pastoring on my own in Carson, California.
Right.
But when I got the call to DuPont, my reason for taking it is because there weren't any Black females in ministry in any regional conference. Right. And so otherwise I was comfortable in California, anybody who passes California,
Yep.
I was comfortable, but the Lord said, you got to open up doors. You got to.
Okay. That's what
I just want to ask one more question.
That door
how did you deal with, and I know DuPont was just coming with female pastors. I mean, they were open, not female pastors, female elders. They were just coming through with that. How did you deal with the male elders? Did you ever have any difficulty with male elders?
Well, let me just put it this way. Your male are usually the more supportive ones than your female. Okay. People have a tendency to think that it is the males because, men always talk about leaders, a woman shouldn't be up there. And we had a few of those, but not that I remember with my male elders. But females have a more tendency to say, we don't want a woman pastor. And so you have a large percentage. And even every church that I've been through too had more support from the men. And then churches, the men, even now that I pastor, my females at my church are pretty good now.
Right.
But when I got there, the men, even now where I am, they are just awesome. Pastor, what you need. Pastor, where it's just an awesome. So it's not, we have a tendency to think it's men, but it's not really the men who have most of the opposition, except for men who are pastors. Now, some of them don't want it because they don't.
I gotta go.
want
I'll be back. I gotta go.
Nope, stay right here. Keep on, Pastor. Keep on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on.
You know,
Come on.
and I'm not saying that we have majority of men who are pastors are your support system. Well, they weren't for me, but there was that group that felt, especially in seminary or at Oakwood, who felt like, if I get the position, I'm taking it from someone else. And that leaves another male out when, but my theory and my understanding is if God wants you somewhere, he's going to put you, whether you are, if you're called to the ministry, then God's going to give you your call. He's going to find a way to put you.
That's right.
And he has a space for you, because God didn't call you to do anything that he has not already prepared for you to do.
Amen.
I have a question for Caitlin. In the pre-show, you went down the list of positions or responsibilities you have there at the academy, and I believe one of them was you indicated that it was female VP. Is that? Could you repeat that title again for me? So I just want to be certain.
I am the female religious vice for the United Student Movement here at Pine Forge Academy.
How do you feel about that female tag at the beginning? Could you just be the VP and not be a female VP?
Yeah, so it's interesting. This is my second term as the religious vice. But last year, I actually served as the only religious vice for the United Student Movement department. And so I took on the weight that, because not only I was the only one, but again, I am a female. So I took on the weight that said, I won't let anybody know that I can't do it by myself. Because
is there a male version of your job?
There is.
There is. And do you feel it's still important to have that distinction in your title?
I don't think that we have to say there's a male one versus a female one. I understand for a diversity perspective in the team as a whole, because there are multiple positions like that in our USM team where there's a male and a female. And so I understand that for diversity's sake, the ladies don't live in the boys' dorm, the boys don't live in the girls' dorm. So you need that kind of diversity, but I don't know that you necessarily have to say after the position is filled that there is the female religious vice versus the male religious vice.
Yeah, I go there because, there are people who have discussed during Women's Month that people say, well, yeah, we have 3 female cops and we have 8 male cops. We have 17 male physicians and 3 female physicians. And so we've been indoctrinated. Even me, I admitted, I think in one of the podcasts, that when I get pulled over by a female police officer, my attitude is different from a male police officer. I'm thinking, oh, she's going to be really nice to me and she'll let me go. I'll be honest with her and she'll be softer, as opposed to a male cop. He doesn't even really want to converse with me. He just wants 2 things: my driver's license and my auto registration. So what I'm getting at, I think sometimes these prerequisites of your orientation, of your sex, kind of programs us to approach differently. Maybe not in your case, because you gave a pretty good explanation as to why there's a distinction. But I think that sometimes we set ourselves up for a type of prejudice when we say, oh, she's a female, that's a female inspector. Okay, so what difference does that make? What she is an inspector, but a female inspector, what does that mean? So I'm thinking with if I may call you just Lisa, coming up through the ranks, so to speak, and you said you met your own amount of opposition. Did you feel at all intimidated with that coming up and feeling like in some way you had to prove yourself?
I don't know that I felt like I had to prove myself, but I did feel that it was unfair to be considered a female pastor. I didn't like the term because we don't go around saying male pastor,
Right.
but we're quick to say female pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'll get in trouble about this, but I don't like the fact
Not
that
here.
when they're doing the profile of the churches, one of the questions is, would you accept a female pastor? Well, to me, I feel that that's, like you said, that gives them the out. We as women who are pastors should not be singled out, whether you be accepted or not. We didn't come as female pastors. We just happen to be females. We came as pastors.
Right.
And we should be judged not on our gender, but on our
Right.
qualifications and what we have done. So I think when they ask that question, it allows people to say, never thought about it, but no, because most people don't like changes. And that it would be a change in their mind because you've put that in their mind.
Right.
But if you just say, what are your qualifications as a pastor? What are you looking for in a pastor?
Right.
And if that pastor happens to be female, that's what you get because she's qualified. If it happens to be a male, that's what you get because he's qualified. But don't single us out and say, will you accept? So I've mentioned that in the past, has not changed far as I know, but I think it has limited us as pastors that are female from being moved from different churches to different churches, because most churches will say no. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I remember in California, when I was ready to leave the youth department and go into a church, the pastors went around asking their congregation, would you take a female pastor? They all said no, because they had never had one. But James Lee said, I'm not asking my congregation anything. I'm going to introduce you as the next pastor, associate pastor at Normandy Avenue Church in California. And that's what happened. And they were able to adjust to it and they accepted it and we did well. Matter of fact, they wrote when they were moving me, please, President, don't move our associate. But they didn't give, if other churches wouldn't give that opportunity because they were asked, would you? And most people are going to say no because they've never had it before and we don't like change.
Wow. Listen, this is called the upset for a reason because just me hearing that right now, I'm already putting in my mind who I'm going to talk to on Monday, because it's true.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. What did you just say?
She mad.
Hold on. Let's get back to where we were before. What did you just say? You're going to do what?
Because
I'm with you. Don't cower down
I know
now.
what you're saying. But it makes me want to do something about it because I feel like that's a very valid.
That's my point. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I do. That's the point I made. I don't look at you all. And when I say you all, I'm talking about, I don't look at the three of you as I look at game changers, right? Yeah. Because I'm going to tell you this. I wasn't going to say nothing. And not because I'm not brave enough to say something of what Pastor Reed what Pastor Lisa just said. It's because I believe that your influence is going to be better saying it and getting the changes made. And hold on, not because you're a female. is because of the respect that you have in the leadership role and the influencer in our conference or anywhere else, not only our conference, but also among all the communicators of the regional conference where it could be done. So I know, going back to the beginning where we say, okay, is it leader? That's why I'd rather GP use the word influencer, because that's what's there right now. I look at Kaylin and I know that Oakwood is waiting for her. You know what I'm saying? They're not sitting there saying, okay, we're just going to get another person coming in from Pine Forest. They're like, we already know where we want her to be, and we already know where it's going. We already know that. So when I cut you off, Latasha, purposely because I like that. I like it that, you know, the first thing you said to yourself was, oh no, since I sit on those boards, since I have a seat at the table, I'm going to have the opportunity now to be like, take that out because it shouldn't be there. Because the truth is, yeah, you want to upset it. The truth is that question is there. No matter how you look at it, it's sitting there, right? So, and here's the other side of it is that we want to place them there when God hasn't placed them there or put the decision of placing, you hear I keep saying them there. So I'm going to say trailblazer. I still consider a trailblazer. Latasha, I still consider you a trailblazer. Kaylin, I can't wait. I just can't wait to be like, oh, that's my niece. Now you ain't my niece, but I'm gonna call her, I'm gonna say it anyway.
You're gonna claim me.
Yeah, we're gonna claim,
I
right?
back then, yeah.
I knew her when, right? So I'm really happy to hear that. I'm not one of those, but on the flip side of it, I do believe that there's still a glass ceiling.
Yeah, I feel like
absolutely.
we shouldn't have conversations like this if we're not willing to change anything we're doing. Like, it's not enough to talk about certain things until we put things in place that address some of the things that are, I mean, and you mentioned that you've brought it up before. And and nothing was adjusted. And it makes me think about the bias, like you said, the bias that it gives, or the opportunity, or it's even saying with the question, we give you this option to say yes or no. Well, no one asked, do you prefer someone who, well, I don't know, you know, a male who's been divorced, or a male that, like, those types of questions. I mean, you know, like, if we're going to be biased in our questions, then it needs to be across the board. We shouldn't do that way at all.
Ageism is wrong too.
Yeah,
you know,
older or younger.
Questions. Do you want a young pastor? Well, what's that? Do you want an old pastor? Well, what's that? You know, it's almost like Coming to America 2, and we are watching Coming to America 2 and seeing all the actors from 30 years ago come back, and you kind of saying to yourself, you still expect them to be like they were 30 years ago. I think it's not fair. You understand what I'm saying? When as we look at it, it's just not fair. So even though we get away from ageism or males, I do think that line of questioning should come up. I mean, not come up. Should not come up. Yep.
I'm going to pose something. It could be to everybody, but especially to our guests. You should get your feedback on this. In preparation for the show, I read an article from the Harvard Business Review. And the name of the article is 7 Leadership Lessons Men Can Learn from Women. And, you know, we could have a whole show on these leadership points, but I wanted to zero in on one that I think most characterizes the two of you as leaders. One of the lessons, it says in the article, is motivate through transformation. Academic studies show that women are more likely to lead through inspiration, transformation, or transforming people's attitudes and beliefs, and aligning people with meaning and purpose rather than with carrots and sticks than men are, okay? Since transformational leadership is linked to higher levels of team engagement, performance, and productivity, it is a critical path to improving leaders' performance. If men spent more time trying to win people's hearts and souls, leading with both EQ and IQ, as opposed to leaning more on the latter and nurturing a change in beliefs rather than behaviors, they would be better leaders. What are your thoughts? And I know that's a lot, but when I read that, I felt all smacked in the face. It's like somebody,
Chuck,
you
Chuck,
know.
Chuck,
And
Chuck,
I said, this description kind of, it vets what these two ladies are because of their intention to lead and transform people as opposed to just being a leader.
hold on, Chuck, GP, you got to hear this, man. Yeah, I'm gonna say it because I'm gonna say it anyway. Before Pastor Reed got to the spot that she was at right now, we could have closed that church. When I say close it, I'm talking about you could sell the building of what was it. So, Chuck, I'm really answering your question. I'm kind of going on your question. I mean, what you were just talking about, you could have. You would have thought, though, all right, that they would have said, man, to build back our kingdom, that's one of our kingdom churches. You know what I mean? That's one of our mothers. We need to send Buddy Bird. We need to send Furman Fordham. We need to send so-and-so just to build it back. I'm saying this in public. The way God sent the right person to that church to rebuild it. God didn't send a female. God didn't send, well, she says she's shy, but I don't know. I see her like Jesus turning over tables and pews. I see Pastor Lisa like that. But I have to commend you on where the church is right now, that I can't fathom which pastor would have been able to bring the church back after what it has gone through. I don't want to put you on the spot as far as what has happened with the church, but you brought it back.
Well, I don't know about bringing it back. We're working. We're working to bring it
I'll
back.
say it for you.
We're working to bring it back. I just think that God, he works in mysterious ways. And the church was in need of someone to love them and to show them that they are loved. And that's always been part of my ministry. That's why I said I'd rather be on the one-on-one dealing with the members rather than the preaching part of ministry, because my favorite part is just to love the members and to try to show them love regardless of what they have and they don't have, what skills they have and skills they don't have, the leaders versus the non-leaders. My favorite ones is those who don't like me because I'm a female. Those are my favorite people, because then I have a challenge, and my challenge is to get them to see me for who I am and that I'm real. And so I tend to be like a parent. You know how a parent says, the child who's giving them the worst problem need me the most. And I tend to do that with them. I love them the most. And for the most part, that's what turns them around. So based on what Chuck said, it's about showing people love and respect. And that helps. That's what helps. And that's what I think has helped me where I am today at First Church, because the members, if they don't know, they will know that it's about, I love each one. And I think that might be one of the weak parts, at least of a female. I don't know. We tend to love easily, and every church that I go to, I fall in love with the members. And so when they move me, it kills me because now I'm leaving them and I've built a connection with them,
especially with the youth, especially the youth.
Yeah. I love them. And so, that's what I do.
So this little piece I read was spot on for you. I believe it was. And Kaylin, tell me, in your working with students, is your goal to motivate through transformation, everything that this article said, inspiration, transforming people's attitudes and belief? Is that one of your targets as a leader?
100%. I think that's probably been the hardest part about leading in COVID. And that is there is much missed opportunity and not always being able to connect. One of the ways that, or the way that I first even met with Mr. Williams was through this idea that I had, that was, instead of our normal sit down Vespers where we kumbaya together and listen to somebody speak, we said, let's have a panel discussion. We're going to bring in some kids and we're going to bring in a pastor. And this is not for our parents. This is not for our teachers. This is for us. Let's get down and dirty. What is it that you're looking like? What do you want to know? It doesn't matter what you want to know. It's what do you want to know? Because if we can figure out what you desire, then that's what we're going after. We're not just going after giving you information that goes over your head or in one ear and out the other. It's how do I reach you, the person? And so in COVID, that has been like the hardest thing, when I can't even reach you.
Mm.
Wow.
That's deep. That's deep. I have to say though, I'm curious about what the other 6 were though, Charles. When you said there were 7.
Oh, I'll run through them real quick. I'll run through them. You'll get it. And go check the article out at Harvard Business Review. Number 1 was don't lean in when you've got nothing to lean in about. All right. Number 2, know your own limitations. Now, this is lessons for men
to learn from women.
Leadership, what we can learn from female leadership.
Just say it louder, please. Nothing's wrong with the mic. Just say it.
Finish, Pat. Motivate through transformation. That's the one I read to you.
Right,
Put your people ahead of yourself.
Mm.
Don't command, emphasize.
Wow.
Focus on elevating others. Don't say you're humbled. Just be humble. Just be humble. And I think the last one was, that was it. That was the last one. Don't say you're humble. Just be humble. Reading this article, a lot of it was like my attitude sometimes has been exposed. And even as a person who has led men and women in audiovisual production and projects, and I thought I was pretty good, but I learned a couple of things here. So
that was good
those
stuff.
are the other things.
I feel like if Tally was here, channel inner Tally right here, because I feel like he's brought this up before. Sometimes we think there's a problem with distinguishing men and women, but sometimes it's okay to recognize what women bring as women. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that article recognizes that these are traits that women have. We don't need to, and women don't necessarily need to be on an even playing field, because we recognize we're different. I mean, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We've heard that a lot. So we can take our attributes as women. We know we bring different things to the table and say a man may bring. So I don't need you to strip me of my womanhood or what makes me a woman or my attributes as a woman. But what that article did was take those attributes and show why they make good leaders. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we feel like, I don't think we just want to be seen people, because we say that just a pastor. And I get that, but there are certain things that female pastors bring to the table that male pastors don't. That doesn't make them more. And in some cases, if a church is, as you described, in need of love, and that's something that a woman can give, maybe that is a better fit. I mean, I'm trying to look on the other side of it. Maybe it is because that's something that comes naturally to most females, that you can look at that situation and say, because this person is female, they may have these attributes that can help in a situation. Is that, I guess I'm really posing this as a question. Is that fair to say that there are things that we present and bring on as women that make us better equipped to deal with such situations than men? Even based on that list that Charles just read. And I'm asking this to our panelists, our guest here. Do you think that as a female, you have traits that you bring to the table that your male counterparts don't.
I think that is true, but I think even in that aspect of it, then you look at those personality traits just like you would. So when you're profiling a church or you're looking to lead a church, you'll say, well, this would fit this person because she has these traits. This is a church who's been beat down, who's hurting. This is a church who, we don't know how they're going to survive, but they need someone who's going to come in and say, we love you. We want to make sure that your church grows or you're successful, blah, blah, blah. So then you may say, well, this female might be better, not necessarily because she's a female, but because she has those abilities to do that, where not to say that men don't have that ability, but so some of the traits that she has may fit better versus just the fact that would you take a female or a male?
Gotcha. Looking at the traits. And the thing is, all women aren't the same. Go ahead,
Right.
Caitlin, what are you going to say?
God has equipped women and men to do different things just from the beginning. And so I think when trying to place women in leadership, it's not always about necessarily your personality. When men are in leadership and they're looking for their second hand as far as like a secretary is concerned, often the female is presented in that role. Why?
Mhm.
Because God has kind of calibrated us differently. Women are a little bit more organized in the head than the average man is. And I just think there are just certain things that God kind of said, here is what I want from women in general. Here is what I want from men in general, which is why I think we have to do better in collaborating, because there are different things that we do bring to the table. And like Pastor Reed and Ms. Tasha shared earlier, there are certain things that people are in need of. And if we could focus more on meeting the needs of people versus meeting the vision or what looks good, I think there's so many different places that we could reach.
I agree.
I don't know about this girl here. She, I know we Adventists, man, but some people have been here before.
No, but it's good that you can see that as where you are in your life right now, that you have that ability to kind of have that viewpoint, because some people are, they're well into their adulthood before they even recognize.
Can I leave this with Kaylin though really quick? Don't lose that. There's so many haters, and just like and thanks Pastor Lisa for this, because every time somebody says this, I roll with oh my goodness, my girl from Metro. Oh my goodness. Novella. I roll with Pastor Smith, and you're right. I normally hear that from women who say something as far as ability is concerned, not her personality and not her being it's always the ability. I think if Pastor Lisa, and I'm just calling Pastor Novella because we're my problem is that I don't call her Pastor Novella. That's why I couldn't get the word out. I don't call her that, right? You know why? Because I don't call my male contemporaries Pastor so and so, and so she just she's like Smitty to me. So as far as what I want to tell you, Kaylin, is that don't lose your way. Don't allow anybody to take that away from you. Your dad and your mother. Your mother's a great leader. Your dad has instilled leadership qualities, and what God has given you will surpass your father. And that's what God wants. I can't tell you where I see you at, but I know this for sure that I'll give you an example, everybody. Kimberly Mann, who's now second after your dad had left South Central. I'll never forget what it was like being with her at camp at Oshkosh. We were at Oshkosh together. And one superior came to me and said to her, she can't be a youth director because yeah, she can't be a youth director because not only the female role but her experience. All right. Do you know, to this day, she is one of the top youth directors in the pandemic that has brought the youth back together again, right? This, we're talking about all regional conferences, by the way, and I'm saying it publicly, right? All regional conferences, that now we have her pattern to go back to youth congresses again from her pattern. You understand what I'm saying? So to me, I have to say, Kaylin, do not drop the ball. Whatever God has given you, don't let any human take it from you. Nobody. And that's what I wanted to leave in your spirit.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen. So as we're looking at this thing full circle, I do think we have to acknowledge that some progress has been made in terms of looking at women in leadership. But I do think there is still a little bit of more improvement that can be done. We have identified some of those even in this conversation. But I do want to ask our guest, how do we move forward? What are some ways, some other areas we think that we can support women in leadership or pave a brighter path for them?
The same way we embrace the differences of, let's go with a male team, male diversity, I think embracing those same differences in someone who isn't the same gender as you. Because at the end of the day, I still bring something to the table that you couldn't. And so if that can be embraced by somebody who looks like you, probably thinks like you, then we probably should be looking for something different.
Snap, snap.
Oh man, I'm gonna call your father right after this.
What do you say to that, Pastor Smith? What else can we do to kind of, because you kind of seen this thing for a while. I mean, looking over, not to make it sound long, a few decades. Coming from 1988 to 2021, where are some areas that we could still use a little growth, or how do we help? And I'm not trying to double up on your questions, but we brought up this whole thing about women supporting other women. Like, how do we get into that? Like, how do we improve that part of it?
That's a question I guess I've asked myself many a times. Why is it that other females would not accept a female pastor? I had a lady when I first started at Normandy come to me after I'd been there for several months. And she said to me, I'm going to tell you something. And I said, yes. She said, when you first came here, I was leaving the church. She said, I decided not to stay because I didn't want a female pastor. And she said, my reason was because I'm a single parent and my son needs male role models and not female role models. And she said, but I stayed because my friend said, don't leave, they convinced her. She said, but since you've been here and I've followed you and watched what you do, she said, I'm so glad I stayed and you have blessed us. She started calling me her daughter. I was always her daughter after that. She's an older lady. And I mentioned that to someone else, and they said to me, another female pastor, and she said that she had gotten the same response. Women were looking, because we have so many single parents in our churches, just because we're Adventists, that means nothing. We're 50%, just like the world when it comes to divorces. And the women are looking for that role model. And I think we have to let them know. And I think that they feel like if it's a female pastor, they won't get that. But that's where the men in the church have to step up and be the role models for them. Because when we have so many males in the church. They have to come together and say, our men of our church, young men of our church need role models. I am a single parent who has a son that does not have a dad. And so he lost that in the role model. So it had to be the men of the church who have to take on the responsibility for the young men who don't have fathers in the church. So I understood her situation when she said that. I can't necessarily be a male role model in the fact that I'm not a male.
Right.
But I think that I can be the kind of pastor that uplifts the men in my church so that the men in my church feel manly so that they can be the role models and for the young men that do not have dads in their home. So I think as a female pastor or as a pastor, it's my responsibility to uplift not women, but the men in my church and let them feel like I'm not here to, and I always tell my church, I'm not the head of the church. That's God's job. I play my role, the role he gave me as the pastor, and that they also have roles to play. And so we work together in order to accomplish God's goal. That has always been my theme and my point of the church. So I elevate my men in the church. I elevate those leaders in the church so they don't feel like I've come there to be the man or the female version of a man, but to play my role that God has made me a part of the body of the church and let God be the head of the church.
Amen. I think you guys both kind of said the same thing, and that you recognize the gifts that God has placed in individuals, and you respect the fact that if someone is in that role, it's because God saw something in them to be able to, work towards his kingdom. And the same for them as an individual. So we're not here to intimidate or take over what God has called you to do. We're here to work collaboratively, being okay with recognizing those gifts in each other and supporting those gifts without feeling like we have to battle against them, if you will, or challenge them in any way. So this has been great. I've learned a lot in this dialogue. Of course, we could probably talk for more and more hours about different layers of this thing, but I think it was helpful for me to see a perspective from all of our panelists today. I don't know about you men down there.
Oh, listen, I've been listening and soaking in all the wisdom and insights. It's been amazing. And I encourage everyone to listen back, whether you're watching the video or listening to the audio podcast, play this joint back and listen and learn and grow. And let's help make this change that we need to see.
That's right.
I agree.
Yeah, let's hear your feedback as well.
Yeah, that's right. We always, we're weighing in, but we like to hear from our audience in terms of things how you feel or your perspectives on some of maybe what you've heard or just what you've experienced. Feel free to email those to us, upset@aecsda.com.
That's me.
Yeah, you're right under the box. So because we are going to have an episode coming up very soon, since we've released a few episodes where we're coming back and reading some of your commentary from some of the topics that we've discussed. And so we want to know your take on women in leadership. If you're a woman, how we can continue to move this thing along and get to a better place. If you're a man, maybe something you'd like to know or ask women to help you, because that's one thing I appreciate when men ask the questions, because they really want to respect women in leadership a little better. I appreciate that. And like I said before, I always appreciate this my co-hosts who are always so willing to take on these subjects without hesitation. And I think we had a pretty good dialogue. I want to thank our guest, our first guest on the Upset podcast.
Yep.
Yes, thank you so much.
Trailblazers yet again. So we want to thank Pastor Reed and Kaylin for being a part of this discussion and, speaking from their hearts and allowing us to grow. Any other final comments before we head out? Did you just put up a
Now I was pointing to Pastor Lisa up there. Just pointing
Okay.
her. She's right above me.
Yeah, we're getting this little Brady Bunch box thing, taking it a little too. But anyway, as always, we've had a great time upsetting and then neutralizing and ending on a great note. To know that it's all about respecting the gifts that God has given us as individuals, male or female. All right, this has been the Upset Podcast, talking about women in leadership, and we'll see you next time. Bye.